All right, guys, we are live. Welcome to the Bags to Riches podcast. I'm Zach Ginn, your host. I am joined by April Crossley today. April has such an amazing story getting started in real estate investing. She became a teenage mom into a healthcare worker into a full-time house flipper. Her story is probably one of the most inspirational ones for a lot of women out there getting into real estate. And I think she's a great role model for everyone. And I'm just excited to hear her story. Thanks for coming on, April.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. So let's get started. Let's hear your story. Start from the beginning. I want to hear how you became a millionaire with the power of real estate.
Yeah, so it's a little crazy. When I had my son very young, when I was 16, and I was always a good student. I like to learn. That was a very defining moment in my life for me. I was telling someone the other day, it was a good thing. It made me really put my head down and focus, and not so much worried about having any friends or going to prom or partying or anything like that, because my life completely changed and I couldn't have a quote unquote normal life from the time I was 16 on. So I knew I had to go to school to like make better money. I couldn't just like have a high school diploma. And my mother was in healthcare, so I went to college to be a respiratory therapist, which we're like kind of like nurses, but specialized. We work with people on life support that have breathing problems, stuff like that. So I went to college for that. So my degree is actually in biology, oddly enough, which is just, I tell people, maybe you shouldn't listen to me because this isn't what my degree is in. And I went through all that. All the while, people will always tell you negative things. Like when I had my son very young, it was like, well, like your life's over. See ya. Like you're done. You're never going to accomplish anything. And people just saw it in a very negative light. And I just knew that I wanted better for him than what I had. So I was going to like make that happen. And my intention was to be the CEO of a hospital. So I was actually like at the point in my career where I was shadowing a CEO, and I was working in healthcare, and I was getting my master's degree. And I picked up a freaking book about real estate called The 1 Minute Millionaire. And I just thought everything in the book was a lie. Like I was like, this can't be true. This can't be true that you buy a house. I was not financially educated at all when I was younger. So to me, the concept of like buying a house, someone else is going to live in it other than you, and they are going to pay it down. And then when you sell it, you get to keep that money. That's how simple this book was explaining things. And I remember saying to my now husband, who then I was just kind of dating at the time, I was like, I don't understand this. And he was a real estate agent. And he's like, no, you get to keep that money. I'm like, why would someone do that? And he's like, you're doing that. Because I had a great job, but I was renting a house from a landlord. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am doing that. I should buy a house. So I just started learning more and more about real estate. And while working in healthcare, and same thing as kind of when I was in high school and had to keep my head down, it's not that I didn't care about having friends. I think that's important, like life balance, but I was so focused at one point on getting out of healthcare. Like healthcare just took a really bad turn, like where it became from taking care of people to just a business. And I didn't get into it for it to be a business. So it was kind of starting to disgust me, and I just wanted out. And I feel like when you have that drive inside of you, like, I can't do this anymore and something has to change, it really forces you to like work really hard. And that's kind of what forced me to like really hustle to find deals to be able to get out of my job.
Okay. And what type of real estate do you get into? You start wholesaling? Like, how did you start trying to make that income?
Yeah, as crazy as this sounds, I never wholesaled till 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've been doing this for 12 years. So I just had like a very skewed perception about wholesaling and wholesalers and ripping people off, and how like I just had a very like bad taste in my mouth about it. And that was like an immaturity thing, I guess you could say. And
you're not wrong. There's some bad wholesalers out there.
There are some really, and I think I was just speaking from like my experience probably, and like who I was dealing with being in real estate, and wholesalers were just always super shady and trying to sell me stuff that didn't make sense. So I actually started out flipping on a joint venture because I took a course, and a wholesaler that I met at this course, because you meet tons of people going to like conferences and stuff. And this wholesaler is from my area, and he brought me this deal, and he was like, I have no money, so I just want to like sell it to you. I'm like, okay, so like wholesale. And he's like, yeah. And I looked at the deal, and it actually made sense. And I took it to my husband and was like, I want to do this deal. My husband's like, but we have no money. And I'm like, well, this guy has no money, so he wants to sell it to us, and we don't have any money, but I really want to do this. So my husband knew someone else in real estate that was flipping. So he took it to him, and he was like, this is a great deal. Do you guys want a joint venture? So do you want to like team up, and, you know, I'll bring the money. You brought the deal, but you have to do sweat equity as well, like rip out carpet, clean up trash, stuff like that. So like now my business is at a different point, but in the beginning, I was joint venturing with other people who had more experience with me so that I could get into flips, because I didn't have private money, or some of the pieces were missing from my business.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your first couple deals here, you had no money, you're still flipping properties. So exactly. So you got the JV guy there who had the funds. Were you flipping with them in those first couple deals?
No. So we actually flipped one deal with him. And at the end of that deal, I always tell people, like, I didn't really understand how to read a HUD until probably 5 or 6 years ago. They just like baffled me. So I always let my agent do it. And then who's my husband, then I just learned, like, I got to learn how to read these things on my own, and finally sat down and figured it out. But, in the beginning, when we did that first flip, I saw that we got paid, the other guy got paid, and then this other person got paid on the HUD. And I was like, who in the heck is that, like, getting paid? And here it was a private lender. So that was my first introduction to private lending. At the end of that deal, that guy came to us and was like, hey, this deal was great. Like, this deal was so good, and you guys did great on it, and it went smooth. If you ever need money, your partner used to use a lot of my money, and now he's not anymore. He has his own money, so he's not using my money anymore. And I don't do real estate. I just lend my money. So like, if you want, I have $265,000 you can use. And we were like, what? Like, to me at the time, like, I'm coming out of like being a teenage mom, going to college, having college debt, having bills. I'm just now like wrapping my head around, okay, I'm not going to be a renter. I'm going to own a home. $265,000. I was like, that is a crazy amount of money. Like, back then it just seemed huge. And with that, you can do 2 to 3 deals a year in my market, like turning them, like 2 to 3 deals a year. At that time, I couldn't think any bigger than that. That's all I could think. I couldn't think I should raise more money. I could do more deals. I couldn't think that big. I wouldn't think that big. I'm not sure. I just wasn't educated. I wasn't around the right people. So my thinking was much smaller. So I was just working my job in the hospital, and I dropped out of my master's program because I was like, I can't learn about real estate and do my master's. It's just not enough time in the day. And we used this guy's money to buy like 2 houses a year, sometimes 3, and that's it. I was just kind of like mulling along in my job. And then when I really started to hate my job, it really forced me to think, how do I get out of this and just do real estate full time? That's what really pushed me. Yeah.
Okay. And no offense to your husband, but how most real estate agents they're really good at like talking to people and getting listings, but they're not as knowledgeable about the actual flipping part. Was your husband a really knowledgeable flipper?
Not a knowledgeable flipper, but knowledgeable about investment. So my husband became a realtor because of the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. So when I had met him, he tried to get me to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm like, this just isn't my jam. Like, I know people love that book. I'm not knocking it. I think it's great. Robert Kiyosaki's amazing. I don't like the book. Like, I just don't think it's written very well. It doesn't jive with the way my brain jives. So my husband had other investment books laying around that he would read. And my husband worked in finance for Harley Davidson. And so he had more of like an investment mind. So I just picked up this book, but my husband had never flipped houses, but he did own 2 small rental properties in our inner city where we lived, like $30,000 properties. That was like the ARV, 30 grand. And he actually bought them on like a home equity line of credit, not a home equity, like a personal line of credit that he had with a bank. So he had never really used private money, but he kind of understood the concept of like, use this personal line of credit, buy these cheap properties, they cash flow. So he had those 2 properties when I met him, but I never really asked him any questions and he never really talked about them because I was like, yeah, I'm in school for my master's in healthcare. Like, I don't real estate. So I 100% agree with you. I say to this day, the real estate agent that is also the investor is like a unicorn. It's like finding a unicorn. It's so rare. And my husband is that. Like, I would say he's a really good realtor and does a high volume business, but he's definitely happy we have like the investing side. Yeah.
And so how did you guys both together really gain the knowledge of becoming a flipper? Because there's the April Crossleys, and then there's the people that watch HGTV and try to do it all themselves and fail. So what's the real difference between those two, and how did you get the real knowledge of becoming an actual house flipper?
Yeah, I think just trial and error and like mistakes along the way, and a lot of sweat equity, lots of sweat equity. I'm talking like I would work 3 to 11 in the hospital. So 8 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, I'd be painting or tearing out carpet, or I mean, literally just go nonstop. It was crazy. And figuring out that, okay, if I rip out this, oh wait, then I also have to rip out this. And I don't actually know how to replace that light fixture. So that's going to cost me way more money than I thought. So it wasn't always pretty in the beginning. I wish I would have had more of a plan in place, I guess. I relied heavily on contractors. I always have. But in the beginning, I did as much work as I could on my own. And I'm not very good at anything. So that was a huge mistake. I should have just bought at a deeper discount and hired more contractors. But I used to actually text pictures. My dad used to be an HVAC guy. So I would text pictures to my dad and be like, what is this? Like, I couldn't even walk into a house and say, that's an oil furnace, that's a gas furnace, that's electric, that's I couldn't do that in the beginning. I would just take pictures and send them to my dad and be like, what is this? And he'd be like, that's a super old oil boiler. You should rip that out. And same thing with contractors. I'd be like, here's a picture of this roof. What do you think? And they'd be like, it's old. You're going to have to replace it. I'm like, ballpark, what would that cost? So lots of Googling and lots of sending pictures to contractors or paying them to walk through a bank-owned property with me. I'd be like, listen, whatever you make an hour, I'll pay you that. I'll give it to you in a gift card if you want. And meet me at this house and walk me through and tell me what's wrong with this house. Yeah.
Okay. And when did you really get to the point where you were starting to have thoughts about quitting your job and going full-time into the business?
Yeah. So, I don't, to me, it was like very well planned out. I knew we kind of started flipping and buying rentals at the same time. So I went through the whole BRRRR strategy. So I knew to do a cash out refinance, the bank was looking at my credit. Well, they loved me because I worked in a hospital full time. I was making good money. I had health insurance. I had this great W-2 and I fit in their box. So they loved me. So they'd be like, oh, you want to cash out refinance? Sure. So I was like, what happens when I don't have this job anymore? And they were like, yeah, don't do that. Don't do that because we won't give you a refinance. So you just have to start asking questions like, how can I do that? Instead of people saying like, don't do that. It all goes back to people telling me you're going to be on welfare your whole life now. And I'm like, okay, or how can I not be on welfare my whole life? Like, how do I do that? Don't just tell me I can't do it. So the bank pretty much told us like, you know, you make really good income flipping houses. It's basically like a second full-time job. You're meeting the same income you're making in healthcare. If you can show that you can do that consistently for 2 or 3 years in a row, you could leave your job if you want. And honestly, I had like a target, that 3-year target date in my mind, and my job, just healthcare, I don't know how to explain it, was just getting worse and worse and worse by the day. And it was like nails down a chalkboard for me to have to go into the hospital and work. Yeah.
Mm.
So, but I didn't just like say, oh, I flipped 3 houses last year, so now I'm going to quit because I'm going to do that all the time. I could look back and see that for the past 3 years, I flipped enough houses to replace my income. And okay, now it's time to leave because I can still do cash out refinance. Because there's nothing wrong with flipping, but obviously if you're trying to build wealth, you need to be buying rentals. Like that's where it's at for sure.
Definitely. And how are you finding these deals now and before?
All off market. So I've never done bank owned. I've never done tax sale. I've never done auction. I have only ever done direct to seller. And sometimes I feel a little lazy with that. Like I should get good at like auction or I should get good at something else. But I just always find direct to seller has always been easiest. So in the beginning, it was just always letters. I've had a website with Carrot since 2014. I was probably one of the first people to ever have an Investor Carrot website. And I can honestly tell you, like looking back, it was the best thing I ever did. That's obviously a long-term play. But my best deals come from my website right now. But I've had it since 2014. So Google loves it. It ranks well, all that great stuff. Back in 2014, everything was coming from direct mail. And I can see looking back the shift in just society and how people go about things now, because people don't like phone calls and they don't like mail. So if they can go to Google and say, how do I sell my house fast for cash? That's what they're going to do. That's the route they're going to take. So right now we do website and we do mailings. We used to text. We cut texting out completely. It was great when it first came out, and it's just been, we track all of our KPIs, like key performance indicators, and it just has not been performing for us for the past probably year and a half. So we ditched texting. So right now, mainly just mail and website is what we do. Yeah.
And who's going on the appointments?
So we've changed that a little bit. At first it was just me. I was the only person in my business. That's it. My husband was my real estate agent and I'd send all the mail. I'd talk to the sellers. I'd go out to the appointments. It's that whole, like, just putting in the sweat equity thing. I actually I had this point in my career after I left my job where I wanted to quit the real estate business. And I was having like regret about giving up my healthcare license. And a good friend of mine who's a physician had lunch with me and was like, well, why do you want to quit? And it was pretty much because I was burnt out from doing everything. Mm-hmm. So she recommended me to a mastermind. When I went to that mastermind, I realized like how much money I was leaving on the table by not wholesaling. Like if I had deals I didn't want, I just sent them to this girl in my area and was like, hey, I don't like this area. So just like take this address and do whatever you want with it and send me $500 if you close it. And she'd be like, okay, cool. So she'd just run with it and then send me $500. And I was like, that's good. That'll like pay for some mail. When I went to this mastermind, they were like, you are crazy. Like you need to start wholesaling. And they're like, and you need help. You need to like bring on an acquisitions person or something. And it just clicked for me. I was like, I've literally been sending this girl addresses and she will go close them and she'll just resell them, wholesale them. Why am I not working with her? So I flew from Dallas, Texas back to Pennsylvania after my mastermind and literally stalked her and sat down with her probably 2-3 times and was just like, I don't know what it's going to look like and I can't explain it to you, but we need to team up. We need to work together. And she did wholesaling and I did flipping and buying rentals. And she agreed. So now she used to go on all the appointments. So it'd be me and her. She'd take all the calls. She would go on all the appointments. We would go to mastermind meetings together. Then we brought on a project manager for our flip projects. And my project manager is very good. She can pick up on anything in a house. She has such a good eye. So now all my acquisitions girl does is just sales. I just want her to do sales and take phone calls and help me organize the business because she's wicked smart. She has her master's degree and like she's just so smart when it comes to business organization. So we work more as like a team now as opposed to like, this is my business and you're my acquisitions manager. It's like we work together. Yeah. She takes all the seller calls. And then when we have to go on appointments, our project manager goes out and she takes pictures and fills out a report for us and sends it back to us. And sometimes my business partner will go out on appointments, but I'm trying to get her like out of doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she can work remotely from wherever she wants, if she wants to. That's my goal. Yeah.
You said your mastermind was in Dallas. Is that Investor Fuel?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay. I love Mike.
Yeah, he's great. It's a great group. It's a great group. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think you're revealing a secret here that I don't think a lot of people know this, but I figured this one out pretty quick is females are actually, they do better than males on appointments. Have you found that out too?
Yeah. I just think because sellers trust females more. They kind of feel like males are more salesy, I think.
Yeah.
And females just have more empathy naturally. It is what it is. There's lots of differences between males and females, and that's just one of them. So it's definitely better. I mean, I love that my team's almost all female, not quite, but almost. And I mean, it works out good for us. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just trying to think about your business here. Overall, here's the $1 million question for me, because I do a lot of wholesaling. I wholesale and I do wholesaling.
Okay.
What's the difference between you when you get a deal on either, hey, am I going to do a full-time flip here, like a huge project? Am I just going to wholesale it, put lipstick on a pig, put it on the market, or just get rid of it and wholesale it? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, sometimes it depends on the area. It's definitely case by case. Sometimes it depends on the area. Sometimes it depends on the scope of work. If it's a massive rehab project, so right now I'm located in Pennsylvania. All my business is in Pennsylvania. So we're in the Northeast. So if someone calls us and they have a massive rehab project, and I know I'm going to have to hold that thing through the winter months. Like we have one we were looking at and it has coal heat. You have to like feed the coal heater. And I'm like, I don't want this thing. Who's going to go down and feed the coal heater like every day? Just wholesale it. Like if the seller will let us we're fully transparent with the seller when it comes to wholesaling. So if they'll let us walk people through, we'll wholesale it. Wholesale, I like for cupcakes. So like if I can clean it out and resell it and know that I can make a decent profit on it. I mean, we turned one where we cleaned it out. We're going to do the roof. So we'll clean out and just put a new roof on it. And we pulled out the carpet because there's hardwood floors underneath, and we'll make like $38,000. Then we did another one where we just cleaned it out and put it right back on the market. And it was much crappier. So it sold to an investor and we made $15,000. And I'm like, I'm fine with that. I don't care. And then some of them we just wholesale if the seller's open to wholesale. Yeah. Okay. So we cherry pick our flips, but I can honestly say we have not been flipping a lot in this market. There's not really a need to. If there's just not a need to.
So are you wholesaling this market?
We'll wholesale. Yep. And once in a while we'll rehab. We'll rehab stuff. Like we just did one that needed a new septic system. We have a ton of septic systems around here, and it can take a while for township approval to get a new septic put in. So if we know we're waiting a couple months for a septic system, I'll be like, okay, well, let's just rehab it, because people shy away from septic systems up here. So it's good to have a new one in. And if we're going to wait for that, we might as well rehab the house at the same time. But honestly, people are paying so much more than what we typically pay that we can make a great profit just by not even like touching the thing and not having to deal with any contractors at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so where are you at now? Because it seems like you got a pretty good, well-oiled machine going. I mean, are you trying to scale? What's really the goals for next year?
Scale, yeah. We're probably doing like 25 deals this year. We'll probably close out. And I have 2 flip businesses. And I think the goal is to just scale those. I'd say we 80% of the time run like a well-oiled machine. I mean, I travel the United States in my RV and it works for now. So we'll see how long that can keep going. My focus personally is on larger things. So we haven't bought a rental property in a while, probably a year or 2, but we've sold a lot of our rental properties because of the way the market is. So I have smaller multifamily right now, like 8 units and 6 units and stuff like that. But a lot of our single families we sold because inventory is low and people are paying ridiculous prices for them. So we sold a lot of our rentals. And I really just want to focus on buying bigger, like buying large multifamily mobile home parks, storage facilities. So for me, I'm kind of in like a season of learning, I feel like, and a season of private lending. We've been private lending for a few years, and over the past year, we've shifted to lending into apartment syndications. And I just really, really love that. So I've kind of been diving deeper into that side of the business as opposed to the flipping and wholesaling.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you mind sharing, if someone's looking to lend for something like that, what kind of rates would they expect?
I don't know. It's very deal dependent.
Yeah.
Very deal dependent. I
I
mean,
hate asking that, but
yeah, just private lenders in general, I can tell you, because we still borrow private funds. If I learned anything from that first deal I did back in 2004, that private lender came to us and was like, this guy isn't using my funds. He's not keeping them busy enough. So can you keep them busy? Like, everyone wants to grow wealth, including private lenders. So I learned that even if I have my own funds, I should still borrow other people's funds. And people are like, that's crazy. You could save on the interest. I'm like, I don't really care if I make $5,000 less on a rehab project because I'm paying a private lender. Like, I don't care. It makes them happy. And my whole goal is relationships with private lenders. Because if you want to buy bigger stuff, you need way more money. And you're not going to get there if you don't have relationships with private lenders. So I just continually use my private lenders. I also private lend. And rates are kind of all over the place, depending if you're in a syndication, if you're in a flip, short term, long term. You're looking anywhere from 6% to, I mean, I know guys that are still getting 15, 16, 17% lending short term to newbie flippers that are like, yeah, I'll take it. But they're taking on a lot of risk. The lender is doing that. But
okay.
yeah.
And would you say, if you kind of started out this year, or you had all the knowledge you had back then, would you still be doing those flips, or would you get into wholesaling?
Oh, I would have wholesaled a long time ago. A long time ago. Yeah, I really like it. I would have definitely learned to wholesale from the beginning, for sure. It's faster turnover of your cash. And I don't even like houses. Like, I don't pick out my own flooring or paint or anything like that. And I don't know what I'm looking for in Home Depot and stuff. So I don't like that side of things. So for me, it's just about helping the seller. That's what it's about. And if you can quit, turn it, and get your profit in 2 weeks or get your profit in 6 months, it's like, why wouldn't you get your profit in 2 weeks? So I would definitely wholesale all over. I think wholesaling, flipping, wholetailing, they all have their place depending on the deal. Yeah.
Okay. About, I would say 7 months ago, I had Mike Hambright on the podcast, and it's really interesting hearing some of that goes to Investor Fuel meetings, because you guys take the same philosophy, and it's really good. It's the one thing I really got from him, which I think I'm getting from you, is relationships are everything in real estate.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you build your relationships, and how can someone who just started in this business kind of get their foot in the door with some big flippers and, like, money guys?
Yeah. So consistency, going to meetings, which I know has been a little difficult because of COVID, and RIA meetings, or just attending webinars, was huge for me. When I started, there was no good REI meeting in my area. I used to drive an hour and a half to go to a real estate investment meeting down near Philadelphia, and then drive back an hour and a half at 10 o'clock at night. It was a total pain. I didn't want to do it. But I kept forcing myself to do it even on the nights I didn't want to go. And as people start to see you there all the time consistently, they take you seriously. I organize a meetup group in my county. There's like 1,500 members in it. And when I hold meetings and I see the same faces like over and over, then I start to take an interest in like what they're doing, what are their needs, and they start meeting, like my private lenders come to the meeting, they start meeting those people because they become more comfortable with the lingo, they become more comfortable with networking, and you see the same people. So you're like, hey, I saw you at the last meeting. Like, what are you doing? Tell me a little bit about yourself. So really consistency with networking, which is very hard to do. And I'm sort of outgoing, but even I am like, I'll sign up for an event and be like, have so much anxiety. Like, I just do not want to go. I do not want to go. I do not want to go. And then I go and I'm like, I'm so glad I went. I always make a connection or talk to someone. So be consistent with your networking for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And what would you say is the biggest lesson you learned in the past year in real estate with COVID?
Oh man, the biggest lesson I learned in the past year. So for me, it might be a little bit different than like flippers and wholesalers. At the very, very end of last year, I did my first investment into a syndication passively. So before I used to lend to flippers and I used to lend to people buying rentals. And I did my first large investment into a syndication. And I felt like a newbie private lender because I was shaking and I wanted to vomit. And I'm supposed to be sending $100,000 to like Texas for like 7 years. And I was having a heart attack. And then I did my taxes at the end of that year. And I got like a $40,000 tax deduction because I passively invested into a syndication where I have shares. So I'm kind of like considered an owner. And for us, that was huge because we've been selling rentals. So we've just been getting smacked by like taxes, you know? And so to be able to invest passively and get a huge tax write-off was a huge lesson for me. It was just new. It was just a big new, like, wow, this is really helpful to me, just not from having my money invested and making cash flow, but also from a tax perspective. Because I don't honestly really take much interest in like taxes, but I know it's like painful to write a big fat check at the end of every year. So that's kind of a little like outside the box, I guess. Maybe.
Okay. And I know in 12 years, you've probably had some crazy stuff happen to you in real estate. What would you say is your craziest real estate story?
Oh my gosh. That's a great question. I don't know if we've ever had like anything super crazy. I've been through some very painful landlord moments where I've literally have gone to a tenant and said, I can't afford to pay the water bill anymore because you're not paying your rent or the water, and your water's going to get shut off. And I've like moved them to another house that I had empty and then like evicted them from there. And lots of crazy tenant stories for sure. Flipping, not so much. I just tell people typically like the easiest flip I've ever done was I bought a house from a guy in the city, like a low income area row home. It was his brother's house. He passed away and we bought it from him for $10,000. And he, during the meeting with him, he was like, yeah, the neighbor wants to buy it for 20. I'm like, well, why don't you just sell it to the neighbor for 20? Because like we're investors, we're only going to pay 10. He's probably going to move his family in. He's like, oh, he doesn't speak English because it's a very Spanish dominated area. And I was like, so just get a translator and sell it to him for 20. He's like, no, I just need to do it very quickly for 10,000. I just need it done. And I don't want to deal with him because he speaks Spanish and I just need someone that can buy it quick. So we bought it for 10,000 and we literally left settlement, drove into the city where we bought this house, knocked on the neighbor's door, asked him to get a translator to come down, and told them that they could buy the house for 20,000. So we bought it for 10 and immediately resold it for 20,000. And the most interesting part about the story is this guy only spoke Spanish, but his family member spoke English and Spanish and translated perfectly. And he came to the table in a week with $20,000 cash rolled up in a wad of money. So because it was a low income area, this guy that didn't live there but was selling his brother's house was just kind of like judging the whole situation all around. Like, I'm sure you guys can buy it cash, but people in here, they can't do that. And it's like the low income area where we live, the Hispanic population isn't huge on banks. They don't trust banks and putting their money in banks. So having wads of cash under their mattress, not unusual at all. So we bought it for 10 and resold it for 20 in a week. It was the easiest deal I've ever done. It was amazing. And this family was so happy because we sold them a house fully furnished with like everything in it. They couldn't believe it. It was a good feeling. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know there's a big Hispanic population there in Pennsylvania.
What's that?
I didn't know there's a big Hispanic like city there in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, in Reading, in the inner city of Reading, Pennsylvania. If I actually owned I think we owned 10 units total in there, and we sold them maybe 5 years ago. But my tenants used to tell me, there's lots of people there from the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, and my tenants used to tell me, they were super nice, but they tell me, you're never going to do well in the city because you're a white girl and nobody respects you or trusts you, and everybody's going to make your life a living hell. So you might as well just like sell your properties, or, you know, good luck. I mean, people would just tell you that. Yeah.
I get told that all the time, just because I'm in a different demographic where I'm at flipping houses. But
yeah.
oh, okay. So the one thing I do have to ask you is, I mean, you're a millionaire now in real estate. You got, I mean, everything someone would dream of. I mean, what's really pushing you forward now to do more?
One, I just can't sit still. I don't really like to, I love to learn and grow. And what pushes me forward is I'm the dumbest person in every room that I'm in. I'm the dumbest person. I'm part of 2 mastermind groups and I'm the dumbest one in the room. And when I'm not the dumbest one in the room, I'm bored and I need to be in a different room. And when I'm the dumbest one in the room, I want to cry every time I'm there because I just don't understand what people are talking about. And it's so far above my head that I'm like, I don't get it. But I go back 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times until I catch on to the lingo and what they're talking about. And so what pushes me is the people I'm surrounded with. I'm not doing shit compared to what they're doing. Like, I haven't accomplished anything compared to what they've accomplished. So I am just in awe of these people, and I see how their accomplishments have helped them impact the world. So like, I'm around guys that are like building freaking orphanages in India, and like they're just doing massive things for society because they can, because they make such great money. So to me, I'm like, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And I want to be there. So that's honestly what drives me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So real estate investing and wholesaling in general, there's no secret. It's very male centered and male dominated.
Yeah.
I mean, the secret's out that, females in acquisitions, especially in wholesaling, do a lot better. I see it in my market.
Yeah.
And that I have a lot of people in my Facebook groups, things like that, that follow me that are female and they're trying to get in this business. And it's hard for me to relate with them. I mean, I struggle with no money in real estate. I can relate that, but being a female in this industry, what would your advice be to a lot of young females like you starting out, putting their foot in the door in this business?
Yeah. So I grew up like 1 year apart from my brother. So I always kind of had the mentality, I can do anything you can do because my brother did it. I can do it too. So the confidence factor was always there. I think for women now, being around other women in the field is really, really important. Being around other women that are in the field, because it honestly, and there are women I meet that are like ripping out flooring and picking out flooring and putting back, doing tile. Like, there are women flippers on Instagram that do that all day long. And I'm very open about like, I couldn't even tell you the difference between like 2 different screwdrivers or a hammer. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So you have to be very comfortable with what your strengths are. Don't feel like you have to be a woman coming into this business that knows how to like swing a hammer and lay tile and do this and do that. You just have to know how to be a smart businesswoman. That's it. And run a business. This is a business just like any other business. And your goal is to provide a product that helps people, but you can put all the other people in place to do everything else, like contractors and project managers. And so don't let your lack of knowledge stop you, because the goal is to not be working on everything in your business. The goal is to be up here and building a team that can like balance your areas where you're weak. Basically, everyone on my team is smarter than me at what they do. Like, my project manager, I'm like, she'll ask me and I'll be like, don't ask me. Like, you're better at this than I am. Like, my goal is just to kind of like keep everything flowing and keep the business running. So find what you're good at, farm the rest out.
Wow.
Sure. Yeah.
It's powerful right there.
Yeah.
So if you had a time machine, and let's say you can go back to 12 years when you first tried to get in this business, what would you tell a younger version of April starting out in real estate? What are the secrets you tell them to help them with their success?
Definitely, hands down, get into some kind of coaching and never leave. Never leave. I was in coaching off and on and off and on. And my biggest regret is not staying in some kind of group or some kind of coaching with someone that forced me to think bigger. Because I look back on all the years where I was like, why didn't I think of that sooner? And I'm like, well, you didn't think of it sooner because you weren't around people thinking bigger than you. So hands down, that's my biggest. People want to complain about the cost of coaching or the cost of mastermind. I'm just like, you have no idea like how much money successful people invest into their education first. Like that's a priority for sure for me now. And I wish my younger self would have known that.
Okay. And so we got a couple questions here. So we got so true negative Nancy's. Got some people in the house. Don asked, are you flipping or wholesaling? I think kind of answered that.
Yep.
Yeah. So Viviana asks, she wants to know, do you recommend take some project management classes as a young female real estate investor?
Yeah, I don't think it would hurt at all. I think it would definitely help, especially if you want to get into flipping. I learned a lot of like my project management skills and how to work with contractors from my mastermind group and just other people in my mastermind group. But I feel like if there's a class out there and you can take it on project management, I probably would have taken it. Yeah, for sure. Or even just read a book on it.
Okay. And then she asks, or just focus on acquisitions.
Everything in your business revolves around the deals. Obviously, without deals, your business is dead. So my primary job in my flip business, because my flip business is still my job. My primary job in my flip business is marketing to find deals and raising money. That's all I do. So two things I love to do. The other biggest mistake I've made in my business in the past is like turning off my marketing. Never turn off your marketing ever. Don't care what you're going through, what you're doing. Just don't ever turn it off. So acquisitions is super important, but people spend too much time focusing on like, what am I going to say to the seller? How am I going to talk to the seller? Just get your marketing out there. And the first time you start talking to sellers, you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to perfect it. You're not going to be like the sales queen or king, even within the first 5 years of your business. Just do it and be genuine and sit down and listen more than you talk, and stuff will start to come together. So would I focus on acquisitions? I'd focus on bringing in deal flow, like primary first above everything, even above raising money. Because if the deal is there, the money's going to be there. The money's going to come. If you have a deal and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to flip a house. I don't know any contractors. I don't have any money. You can take it to a more experienced investor in your area. If I tell everyone all the time, I don't care how new you are. If you bring me a deal, I'm going to tie you into that deal somehow, but let's just get the deal done. Like I have everything. I have the money. I have the contractors, but bring me deals because that's what makes my business tick. So really focus heavily on that.
Yeah. I would say I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, again, education has been a big part of your success. I've seen you obviously got to be the dumbest person in the room, but how do you tell the difference? Because I've seen a lot of coaches out there too. You get in the wrong room, you're in trouble. How can you find out if you're in the right mastermind or coaching program?
Yeah. So I ended up in Investor Fuel after I interviewed 4 other mastermind coaches. And how could I tell I was in the right one? My values aligned with the people, with Mike Hambright and his crew. They genuinely care about people. The other people that I interviewed, you could just tell they didn't really genuinely care about whether you succeed or not. I am not a huge believer when it comes to coaching and masterminds to long-term commitment, like saying, sure, I'm going to pay for an entire year. I don't like that because like you said, you can sometimes think your values align and you get in the room and you're like, this is nothing like I thought it would be. So I'm always like, how about month to month? How about a trial? Something like that. And honestly, you're going to meet some coaches that are not good or end up in rooms that aren't a fit for you. But don't let that discourage you. You have to keep looking. You have to keep looking because you'll find the right one. It can get frustrating. It's kind of like RIA meetings and meetups. Like sometimes you go to RIA meetings and meetups and you're like, this is a horrible sales pitch fest. I'm never coming back. And you think every meeting's like that, but every meeting's not like that. It's not true. You just have to find the one where the people are genuine and really want to help you. That's a good fit.
Okay. And you're also known as LAZYGIRLREI. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came up with that name and what that is?
Sure. Just because I feel like laziness is my biggest strength sometimes, because I find a lot of people that they want to learn how to lay tile. They want to learn how to do project management. They want to learn wholesaling. When my coach told me I had to start wholesaling, I was like, ew, like, I don't want to take the time to learn wholesaling. He's like, okay, then who do you know that wholesales? And I was like, now we're talking. I'm going to go ask this girl if she'll partner with me because she wholesales. So I love to learn and I love to grow, but I know what my strengths are. So I try to focus on those, and I don't want to learn about everything. So sometimes people look at that as lazy. So I guess it's kind of like a play on words. Like sometimes society has this view that like, well, if you're not going to go there and rip out the carpet anymore and paint anymore, or go to Home Depot and pick up supplies, you're freaking lazy. And I'm like, I'm not actually, just I'm lazy, but it's genius. Like laziness is my genius because I can be more efficient, because there's people out there that are better at it than me, that do it faster, that do a way better job. So I can focus on raising money and finding deals. That's all I want to do.
Definitely. I think, what's Bill Gates say? He says something along, give me a project or a process and I'll find the laziest person and he'll help me. He'll get it done as fast as possible. I don't know. I butchered that quote, but that's kind of what I think about looking at.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean, because people spend too much time trying to force themselves into what people want them to be. And talk about being a female in the business. I mean, people come to me all the time. They're like, oh my gosh, you have a flip business. You're like Joanna Gaines. That's so cool. I'm like, yeah, only I don't pick out anything for my houses. And now I don't even see the houses. And I can't even match my own clothing to dress myself because I have such bad taste. So I have other people that do everything Joanna Gaines does for me, because I'm actually nothing like Joanna Gaines. But people kind of put you in that box because you're a female. They're like, oh, you must love picking up backsplash and tile and paint. I'm like, actually, I hate it. I hate it. But I really like running a business. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing those shows don't show. They fudge some of the numbers. It's a little scripted. Yeah. The profits aren't real, but with you, the profits are real. That's why I love it.
Yeah.
And what inspired you to start a YouTube channel, provide value, and kind of get into coaching yourself?
Yeah, and I don't do a ton of coaching anymore. The coaching stemmed from my meetup group. I had people in my area that were just like, can you teach me how to do this? I was like, nope, don't have the time. For like 3-4 years, I put it off. And then I was getting hounded so hard. I was like, all right, I'll do it. The YouTube channel, this might sound like, I don't know why I started the YouTube channel. I started just to like share my journey and information with people. And I'm very open about, I don't know it all. So sometimes I say stuff on my YouTube channel and then someone will message me and be like, you should look into this. It's even better. And I'll be like, guess what I learned about today? You know, definitely don't know it all. Far from it. And I just started it to share my journey. Like I didn't know anything about YouTube or monetizing YouTube or how to use YouTube, or I was just like, I'm going to record some videos and tell people what we're doing on our deals. And people just really like it, I think, because I'm fully transparent. Like someone will call me out on a YouTube video and be like, oh yeah, well, you forgot this closing cost. And I'll just comment, you're right. Dang it. I forgot it again. Like, so what? Like everybody like makes mistakes in this business. So I think people just appreciate what the opposite of HGTV is. Yeah. Like, here's my mistakes. I'm not perfect, but here's what I've learned so far. So if it helps you, awesome. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, that's kind of what I try to do on my channel. That's what I appreciate about you. People can really tell when you're being real and when you're kind of got that little car salesman thing going.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate you guys doing value. You guys should definitely go follow her on Instagram, check her out on YouTube. my last question really for you here is, if you had to go back and you had to go forward. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you had to start out, like we took all your money away from you, and you're like 12 years back, but you're in 2020, what would you do to become the next April Crossley? No money, nothing.
I would go to my local meetup group and start asking around title companies and attorneys who is flipping houses successfully in my area. And I would stalk them, because everybody's so busy these days, you have to stalk them. And I would ask them, what can I do for you in your business so that I can learn? Do you need deals? Tell me what to do and I'll do it. I'll find you deals. And I would start YouTubing videos on how to find deals. And I would do whatever it takes to bring that person a deal so that they take me seriously. And then I would shadow that deal for free without being paid, just so I could learn, so that the next time I bring them a deal, I can get paid. Everybody wants to get like paid for every little thing they do. And this business takes sacrifice to become successful. And you have to prove yourself that you're actually going to add value. If you focus on adding value to the life of other people instead of just getting paid for everything you do, your business will explode. Like, it will explode, even without you having 2 pennies to rub together. Just add value to another successful flipper's life.
That's what it's all about. I mean,
yeah.
Have you also, add on that, have you kind of figured out, I mean, I figured out myself, has this happened to you? Is experience the best teacher when it comes to real estate investing?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I if by that you mean like just like jumping in and getting your hands dirty and starting, just not just reading books, but actually like jumping in, teaches me more personally than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So I really appreciate you coming on. Check her out, April Crossley, on YouTube. You're definitely really inspirational. I know there's a lot of females watching this, a lot of moms watching this, maybe dads. I really appreciate you coming on. Is there any parting thoughts you have for the audience before we hop off?
I don't think so. No matter which way you look at this business, it's just all about helping people. You're helping sellers, you're helping other flippers, you're helping private money lenders grow wealth. People a lot of times think private money lenders aren't looking for them. They're looking like you're only looking for private money lenders, and that's not true. Like, private money lenders need you to help grow their wealth. So it's all about helping them, and the homeowner and the contractor, and your business helps a ton of people. So just keep adding value and helping people. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.